Yeah, thank y'all for being back. We are almost done. I just want to let that sink in for a minute. We are almost done. After this one, we got two more sessions, and I just think it's so cool that there are some of you who have been here basically since day one. You might have missed maybe one or two sessions out of eight that we're doing so far. So I just feel honored. I feel great that this has been informative enough for you to keep coming back. So super excited about that. And today we're going to be talking about something fun that could easily be boring. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Oh, all these tabs. There we go. This should be it. All right. Can everyone see the tab? Everyone see the screen? I think I get to head nods.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Cool. Thanks, girl.
Yes.
Alrighty. So today we're going to be talking about capture and analyzing data. Now, again, this is a topic that can easily bore you to tears. So I'm not going to go super deep on the technical aspects and all the software that you could use to capture and analyze the information, whether it be emails or sales. I want to kind of more so talk about the philosophy behind that. So that way we can A, all be engaged, and then B, in your specific groups, you will be sharing your experiences using certain softwares or platforms to kind of keep your analytics and figure out what the next best move is. So again, with this series, what I'm going to be talking about is what common don'ts I see a lot of farmers make mistakes on. Again, most small scale farmers can't even get past the $10,000 mark. And one of the reasons why they cannot get past that mark is because they are not keeping track and capturing data and information when it comes to sales, when it comes to inventory, when it comes to acquiring customer emails, when it comes to website visits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So some common mistakes I see is people don't collect data, they don't review their sales, and they waste time focusing on low selling products. Um, I've learned from my own experiences that it's really easy to get overwhelmed with technology. And I'm 31, so I really shouldn't have this problem. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons for me to either distrust technology. I personally do not like how a lot of technology has been used nowadays. Some of you can relate to that with these privacy breaches and people stealing your information. So that does create a little bit of weariness in my heart personally. But what has helped me thrive and grow is being able to see that despite the internet hackers, despite the NSA, despite corporate greed stealing information and trading information with other companies, your personal information, there is a lot of good that can happen with technology. So in this session, I want to just encourage, as we're going into group discussions later on, to if you have any animosity or any hesitation of embracing technology, I want you to put down the table, set aside just for today, and be open to exploring new options when it comes to technology, especially when it comes to collecting data and information. So some key points that you can think about when it comes to collecting information. I'll use my story. So I've raised pigs, chickens, poultry, beef cattle, including Dexter's, goats. Those were fun. Turkeys and sheep. And so I've been able to manage different enterprises throughout my farming career. And one thing that was really helpful for me to figure out which enterprises to actually keep and expand and which ones need to just kind of die out was being able to look at analytics. What I've noticed with a lot of my clients is that there's a hesitancy to look at analytics because there is this uh, fear of if they know the full truth about how good they're doing, or actually how bad they're doing when it comes to sales, when it comes to engagement, then it's going to put them in such a emotional shock that they're just going to completely give up. However, the issue with that mentality, that mindset, is that people who are not doing an inventory on how well they're doing in their sales, on how profitable they actually are, on what's actually selling, what's not selling. That really, people who don't do that end up winding up in a hole. They end up continuing to produce products that still don't sell. And, for us meat people, the best way we know whether or not a product is selling or not is if after 6 months, that product is still in the freezer, right? Pretty easy. Easy. You don't even need a computer for that. That's just easy observational skills, right? However, understanding if you have a larger inventory and you're doing multiple enterprises, not just Dexter Meat, some of you are, we just talked about considering doing pigs, some of you are doing chickens, eggs, et cetera, et cetera. It really can become super complicated if you're not keeping track of all data and analytics. So my question before we go into a breakout room, and I'll talk about each point and each question after the breakout rooms. But for question number one that I have for y'all, and I just want you in your breakout rooms to answer only question number one. How do you collect and organize sales data, and how has it impacted your decision? So again, with this question, what I am looking for in your breakout sessions, your group sessions, is what are some software that you're using? What are types of record keeping? And there's nothing inherently wrong if you're still using paper to keep records. You do run the risk of if that paper catches on fire or you lose it or the ants get to it, the dog gets to it. We know the dog. If the dog gets to it and starts tearing up papers, that you're kind of out of luck, right? So if you are using electronic software, including also paper record keeping, what systems work for you? What software works for you? What kind of inventorying system works for you? Whether it's your frozen products, your raw meat products, if you're doing milk or dairy, what's been helpful for you in that aspect? Some of you are also doing events, right? So what are some softwares that help you keep track of data and information that way? So hopefully I think that should have kind of answered the question for all y'all. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to put the first question in the chat. I'm going to put y'all into 3 groups. I think that should be enough people for discussion. All right. Tell me, what'd you learn? Whether if you got a lot of experience, kind of share with the whole group what has been a success point in terms of implementation software, um, systems, even if you're doing it on paper to make you successful when it comes to data collection and analytics. And if you don't have a lot of experience and you want to ask a question to the rest of the group, we will also hold space for that as well. So if you're ready, just go ahead and speak up and you get a 2-minute timer.
So we got into this from really a landscape management pathway, and not really trying to produce anything from the beginning, just to try and regenerate this land that we're stewarding, and we've had some success with that, and and now we're kind of crossing the threshold to identifying as producers, and we'll we've got some animals that should probably be harvested soon. So not not trying to start a business per se from the start. We didn't think about systems at all. We're just focused on the landscape. And so I asked the breakout group, and nobody had a thought, but you're talking about kind of like inventory, data collection stuff, sales data. But I'm kind of not. I'm thinking personally about, okay, well, that connects to bookkeeping, connects to accounting, and how to inter is that one system? Is that systems that communicate to one another? And I don't know if I'm taking us off track, or if this is a natural, progression of the conversation. But yeah, from starting from where we're coming from, I feel like, oh, I need a system that does all of those things from the beginning so I don't get behind in any one of those things. So I'm open to any I just conversation in that vein.
Brett, that was a good question, brother. A good question. I got some answers, but I want the rest of the group to share their experience just to hope that they have any. So, if you'd like to share your experience to help Brett out, now's the chance. You got 2 minutes, and just speak up when you're ready.
I don't know if it exactly answers Brett's question, but one thing that we use is we use Google Sheets. Um, that way, if I'm making sales and my husband's making sales, we're able to just add to that in like on our phone and keep just a running tally of what was sold and for what price. It doesn't do anything for the side of the analytics, but it helps us to be able to keep uh a running list of what sales have been made, and we can both add to it. We also use that to track like our mileage, any expenses that like we didn't get a receipt for, because like I'm always buying hay and cash. So and then also like just our day-to-day log of things that happened on the farm.
I like the answer, Denise. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else like to answer Brett's question?
I shared with my group that when I first started, I was just using Mead budget tracker. It's just a folder. And that was nice. And then as my business expanded and grew, I needed something that was easier. And so I downloaded Square Up. It's a credit card processor, and the app is free. You don't have to pay monthly or yearly fees. They make their money off of a percentage of your sales. And so you can run all the credit cards through your phone. But what's neat is I can keep track of cash sales and inventory. I forgot to mention that in the other group. And I can, if I like when I would do my freezer inventory every day at the end of the day, I could count how many cheeses I had left of each variety, how many beef, how many hamburger, whatever, and verify it with what my sales were. Um, so you create your own categories of what you want for what you're selling. And then when customers come in or you want to record your sales, you can literally just click on the icons. You mark your own price was what they're at, and it keeps track of that. And then you can go to print reports and do daily sales, monthly, weekly sales. And so if I do a year, it shows my gross sales, my net sales, my average sales, how many days I have sales in a year, and then how many of my purchases were made through credit cards, cash app, or other. And the other for me, I specify as like PayPal or um, Zillow or other places that take credit cards or payments for my farm. And then it'll even itemize. So how much half beef or whole beef did I sell? How many individual packages of hamburger did I sell? Or how many gallons of milk did I sell? It's pretty neat. And then it lists like my credit card processing fees and that. So what I like at the end of the year, I can literally, Square will send me a notification, your tax report forms are ready. And I just print them and I can hand them over to my tax accountant, and all of this is free. They have a lot of resources and tools available for free, including email mass marketing. When you're collecting customers' emails, you can put those in and then create a sales email. And it's a lot of these are free. You can pay money for subscription on bigger things, but there's so many resources available for free at your fingertips through SquareUp. I'd definitely check it out.
Thanks for sharing, Kimberly. And to echo Kimberly, I also agree. Square has been the most effective and easiest software and platform to use when it comes to keeping track of sales. So if and here's the deal. Like, again, we talked about this early on. A lot of folks who are here, you just like Dexter's. That's like, oh wow, I think I might want a Dexter. And then it kind of evolved from I like Dexter's to, oh, Dexter's kind of expensive. How do I, make some money to cover my costs? And for some of you, you've evolved into how do I actually make a profit, a true profit off of raising Dexter's? So Brett, no shame, like that was not your initial thought. A lot of people just kind of start with their passion and then it kind of evolves into a business. Another thing I'll say is, and I'm glad you brought this up about your land management idea and business of sometimes analytics is not just sales. So I think what might be a good selling point for the land management business that you're doing is figuring out what the analytics for your land impact of I'm assuming you're using Dexter's for grazing lands, keep lands in control, or something like that. Brother, like if you can show numbers, oh, here's how many acres we restored this year. Okay. Or if you're looking at here's how many certain species, native species, we were able to save from invasive species using Dexter cattle, like stuff like that. If you're able to use analytics not just in a hard sales number, but also in a impact numbers, right? That's going to be super important because some people they want to know that they're not just getting your services because you provide services, but that you have a cause. You're on a mission, right? And for someone to be able to support your mission, they already need to see what your track record currently is. So hopefully that helps. But I like what you're doing, Brett. Excellent question. Let's keep the conversation going. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to talk about question number 2. All right, so question number 2. Well, actually, hold on, let me pull up on my other screen too. There we go. Question number 2 is, what insights have you gained from reviewing sales data and how has it shifted your approach? Knowledge is power. I'll repeat that again. Knowledge is power. People who review their sales, review, or what we talked about with Brett's example, review their impact, are able to make pretty good decisions. So I'm curious to know what insights have you gained from reviewing sales data and how has that shifted your approach? Some of you, maybe you started with doing wholes and halves, and you maybe dabbled with meat bundles, right? Oh, I'll sell 12 pounds, a 12-pound box, a 50-pound box, right? And then some of you, you're doing farmers markets, right? You went from wholes and halves to farmers market. Some of y'all went from farmers markets to wholes and halves. Some of y'all went from meat and milk. So kind of talk about how insights in your sales or in your impact allows for you to kind of pivot your business structure a little bit. So I'm going to put that question in the chat real quick. Second. All right, and y'all got 8 more minutes of a breakout session. So I'm going to start that real quick. All right, remember, just hit the join button. Cool. All right, so I am curious, what did y'all talk about in the breakout sessions? What would y'all some things that either you learned or if you have any questions regarding the topic, this is also a safe space where you can ask a question. And there is no stupid question. Absolutely not. Only stupid answers. And I think this group gives really good answers, so I'm not worried about that. All right. So if you got any questions or you want to share something that's worked for you, now is your chance. And just let me know and I'll start your timer.
We, oddly enough, Kimberly and I in the same group both happen to sell soap along with other products. And we were talking about how utilizing free shipping on our websites has really helped her to gain more sales through that sales avenue. We've also talked about pricing our products a little bit differently at markets versus on our websites to, take in that extra cost of shipping, but make, using that gimmick of free shipping to really help bring more people in to want to do sales through that avenue.
Sweet. Is that all you had to say, Denise?
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, I was like, she's already spitting facts, so I was like, if you want to keep going, I mean, I was enjoying what you were saying so far. Yeah, that's actually really interesting you bring that up, Denise, because now we're starting to talk a little bit about the psychology of the customer. You can have a product that is one shirt, one pair of pants, and a hat for let's say $50. Or you can say, which people are like, okay. Or you can say, if you buy this pair of pants and this shirt for $50, we'll give you a free hat. You're getting the same stuff either way, same price either way. But this idea of like, oh, it's free, therefore I'm getting more value out of the transaction than I would if there wasn't a free option or free offer to me. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, Denise, because that's something people don't really take into consideration is other human psychology. And I highly recommend if you really want to be successful when it comes to business and marketing and branding, is really making sure you understand how people actually think. Not just your assumptions of how you think or other people think, but really what causes a person to make a particular decision, especially a purchase decision. So good job bringing that up, Denise. All right. Anyone else got some insights, want to share some insights? And again, if you got a question that you want to give to the group, this is also a good time to share as well.
I have a question for Denise. How do you ship?
So I ship everything via priority mail. I like using that because I know exactly how much it's going to cost, no matter how much is in that box or in that envelope, because I only ship nationwide. Like I don't ship to Canada or anywhere, but I know that whether it's going to Alaska or Florida, it's going to cost me the same amount because using priority mail, it's a set rate for up to like 70 pounds. So that works out really well for me.
Good answer. Curious, is there anyone who is shipping meat, frozen meat? Is there anyone who's even remotely curious at that? John over there smiling. Why are you smiling, John? What you smiling about?
Well, it sounds like a big challenge actually, but that would be, would be great if you could, instead of having a local audience, you could have a national audience.
I get a lot of people asking me if I ship Dexter beef, especially new people to the breed or people that are thinking of seeking to buy a Dexter. They want to kind of try it before they buy it. And my answer is always no. So to ship meat across state lines, it has to be USDA inspected. And um, there's an added cost to USDA inspected meat, whereas we go through a smaller butcher that's just state inspected. So I can legally sell retail meat at my store by the cut, as opposed to some states require you to sell the animal. Like if you're selling a quarter, half, or whole, you're actually selling the animal live. you're just dropping it off at the butcher for them instead of their farm, and then they put in their cut order and pay the processing fees and take the meat home. Um, so that's a way of getting away from in any inspections, but to ship it across state lines, it has to be USDA inspected. So, but there is an interest. There definitely is. I guess with priority, you could get it done shipped in like 2, 3 days. So if you do dry ice and insulated, but gosh, I think it would cost a lot because I used to ship cheese for like family for Christmas and stuff, and it's not cheap.
Yep, yep. And that's the reason why I brought that question up for those who are interested in shipping meat. I've done that. It it's at this in the past it actually was a little bit more affordable. Nowadays it's not. It's very unaffordable unless you're living in a lower tier state and your clientele live in New York, Rhode Island, or California, Oregon, and Washington State, particularly the more affluent, high-end areas of those states. So there are some farms that I've even met who their market is strictly to those big major cities. They're not shipping to little small rink-a-dink. I mean, they will, but like their target focus is on California. Their target focus is on Washington State. Their target focus is on New York City. So if that was of interest to any of y'all, it acquiring dry ice nowadays is even hard. So that's another hurdle that you have to go through. But going back to Denise's point about how her and Kimball are selling soap, soap is a shelf-stable product. Raw meat is not shelf stable. So, my advice when I'm working with folks is if you want to do shipping, ship something that is shelf stable. If we want to still remain in the realm of meat, making snack sticks is also an option. There are some processors, you will have to ship your meat, but there are some processors who will turn your beef into a snack stick if you want them to. Now, the caveat with that is you need to have a lot of beef for them. The other caveat to that is whether or not it's worth the money and time, and if the market that you're selling into is actually going to pay for it. So yeah, good conversation. I'm enjoying this. I love y'all. You're such a good group. All right, we're going to move on to the last question for tonight. We're going to be a few minutes over time by the end of things, but only by like 2, 3 minutes, hopefully. All right, last question is. All right, so question number three, the last question for tonight is going to be this. How do you decide whether to focus on high sellers or improve low sellers? Now, here's reality. There are going to be some products that are just simply going to, rack up a lot of good money. There are also going to be products that tend to not sell well that can be improved one way or another. And I already have some examples in mind, but in your group, I want you to think about your high sellers, whether or not you should focus simply on your high sellers or improve your low sellers. When you think about improving low sellers, one thing I want you to think about is it could be different factors, right? So it could either be improving the actual product itself or improving the marketing behind the product or reshifting the marketing from one particular client to a more specific audience. So there's some ways that you can kind of think about that question. So I'm going to put the question in the chat real quick. All right, and I'm going to put y'all back in breakout rooms. So in our wrap up, if you have any questions regarding whether to focus on a high seller or improve maybe a low performer, now's your chance to ask a question. Or if you've been killing it, you either flipped around something that was not making sales and you implemented one or two strategies, or you just bit the bullet and decided to focus on your high sellers and have been grateful ever since. Whatever your experience is, now is your time to share. And just share when you're ready.
So we talked a bit about trying to either kind of finish out your items that don't sell well, if that's a possibility. Like I talk about like specific varieties of soap that don't move, and I'll like bundle them into like a Mother's Day package along with some soaps to do really well, just to like clear out that inventory, and then I don't make those varieties anymore, and I focus on the ones that do better. But I also feel like recently I've been finding that lotion bars have been moving really well for me. So I'm starting to put those in bundles with soap and trying to like begin to move more of each product.
Smart, smart, brilliant, perfectly brilliant. I like it. Like the idea of in the meat world, we would call that the farmer's choice boxes, where you get your main goodies, and then they'll throw in some organ meat, or something a little less popular. So I like that. I like that. Good job, Denise. All right. Any other goodies of information that you'd like to share, or if you have a question?
I was gonna say I do both. So I focus on my high sellers to get people in the door, and then once they're in the door, then things that I have a hard time selling, like for cuts of beef, they're round roast or Pike's Peak or anything that's a little bit tougher to sell. It still is a good money maker. It's more expensive than my ground beef, so I don't want to just grind it all. But instead, I know my most of my customer base are women, since they do like 90% of the purchase decisions, and a lot of them are working moms. And so I find a problem, which is what do I feed my hungry kids after a long day's work? And what can be easy. So that round roast, I have recipes for that are super easy, nice pictures, and entice people to go, oh, that looks really good. And they can take a recipe card and buy a round roast and then get it ready for the crock pot the next day. So a hard ticket item to sell gets moved out the door.
I like it. I also like it. And that's I don't think this is as much of a problem with Dexter's as with the bigger breeds of, like, let's say a brisket. Like, okay, a whole brisket on an Angus is pretty hefty, and most people aren't going to be able to afford it if it's pasture raised, grass fed, grass finished. But there are a lot of cuts that people can also do, and just ask the butcher, can you just make this cut smaller? And that actually, same product that would be harder to sell or harder to move becomes more accessible. Smaller quantities, yes, but more accessible for folks as well. So I like what you said, Kimberly. All right. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up tonight?
Well, I don't want to miss out on an opportunity for a bit of wisdom to mull around in my head for the next week. But I mentioned in this breakout room that earlier today we needed to get some passport photos printed, and we went to a local printer that's owned by some some uh, Muslim folks from Mali, and they're a part of a pretty large international community. They work at the national labs nearby. So it's just like their whole life, their religious life, their work life, and then owning this shop, they have a lot of community surface area. And when they found out that we were raising animals, they got really excited. And they were like, their whole community is always looking to buy direct from farmers and actually come and buy the animal live and butchered on site. And they were immediately like asking us for prices, and I had no idea what to tell them. And so, yeah, just I'd be open to any. I know what I paid for the animals, like I know what would be break even or whatever. But yeah, I just leaning into this being a producer seller is like, okay, well, how would I even price a live animal, in that context?
That is a great, excellent question. And here's what I'm going to do with that question, if you're willing to stick around for just a hot minute,
Yeah.
because there's some people, they're probably ready to go. Um, I want to pose that question again after I stop the recording and we have officially finished. Normally what we do is we hang around for about 15 more minutes and shoot the breeze. Um, so yeah, I want people to stick around if you want to answer Brett's question. Um, Also on the topic, another thing, especially easy for if you're doing raw meats, is organ meat. Generally, organ meat does not sell for a whole lot. But one thing that I'd mentioned and that was expressed in our group early on a few weeks back was turning organ meat into the ancestral blends or primal blends of ground meat. So usually that means is about 90%, usually 90 to 95% of the ground is actual ground beef, and the other 5 to 10% is going to be organ meat. If you want an even higher level of organ meat, that might be for pets or even for humans, it can even go at a higher price. So organ meat as a like the heart still intact, the liver still intact, doesn't usually sell as well. But when you turn it into a blend for health conscious folks who want organ meat in their diet, because organ meat has a lot of macro and micronutrients, then you can actually charge a premium, adding a inferior product into the general your general product list. So again, that's just another example of turning something that wouldn't move on its own and incorporating it into a high seller or at least a consistent seller of ground meat and actually being able to move that product and not waste anything. All right, so we're going to wrap up. I hope y'all have a blessed day, blessed night, and a blessed week until I see y'all next time. And yeah, next week we are going to go over innovation. So it'll be a good segue from this conversation of analytics. Now we're going to talk about actual implementation. So stay tuned for that next week.